continuing with the Women Shaping Cities dialogue. Look, you will agree with me that for many of us, when we look back on what our grandmothers, mothers, sisters, nieces means to us, what is that we don't focus on the role and leadership of women when we discuss multilateralism. I have a grandmother, you have a grandmother. I have a mother, you have a mother. Then there are the sisters and nieces. So why don't we ever remember that they do improve our lives, including with the context of human settlements in international arena when we discuss issues as multilateral fora. First Lady of Kenya, Mama Ruto, you're a very remarkable person. I have just been informed about a long-distance bike ride this morning you made. Your Excellency, today we look forward to listening to your wise words and extensive experience in supporting women and communities. We look forward to hear what can be better, you can do better, and we can do better with respect of human settlements in urbanized world. We are extremely grateful that you accept the invitation not only to join us, but to convene this session of Women Shaping City. First Lady, Mrs. Ruto, thank you for responding for our requests. Now I invite Victoria Rubdavdari, an award-winning journalist, to be with us, and she will be the moderator on the dialogue to take over and lead this session. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Rubadiri. Allow me to observe protocols. Her Excellency, Mama Rachel Ruto, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, the United Nations Habitat Executive Director, Maimuna Mohammed Sharif, as well as the United Nations Habitat Assembly President, Mr. Roman Meyer Falcon. We also have with us the Minister for Environment of Botswana, Honorable Hilda Kereng, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. This, of course, is the First Ladies Roundtable, Women Shaping Cities and Communities. And we seek to do three things over the next hour and a half, and that is to revisit the significance of women's roles in accelerating progress towards sustainable development globally, exploring innovative solutions for more women to unleash their potential in managing and shaping the cities and communities that they call home. And lastly, to consider the strategies of how we can scale up the investment and financing opportunities. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a short interlude of a cultural performance, after which we will then have the speech from the Executive Director of UN Habitat. A round of applause for them. I beg your pardon. I understand that we will give them a few minutes, but at this juncture, allow me to invite the United Nations Habitat Executive Director, Madam Maimuna Mohammed Sharif, to address the Assembly.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you so much. Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto, honorable guests, distinguished delegates, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. A very good morning to all of you and karibu sana, Nairobi, Kenya. I'm so proud to welcome all of you to the second session of UN Habitat Assembly here in our lovely city of Nairobi. I would like to thank the government of Kenya, our host for our second UN Habitat Assembly, and of course, our distinguished guest of honor today, Her Excellency, the First Lady of Kenya. And I must also extend my gratitude to Her Excellency, Madam Amina Erdogan, the First Lady of Turkey, and also for her very gracious messages, which I was informed that she cannot make it, but she sent video message. As the Secretary General said, we cannot achieve sustainable development goals without the contribution of women and girls. We all know that women are the key to sustainable urban development. As I said the other day at the Business Roundtable, women, we must be at the table. This is because if we are not at the table, we will be on the menu. So let me share with you some data. 50% of the world population are women. 5% of world cities are led by women. 8% of the Fortune 500 companies are women-led. Women earn 37% less than men in similar roles. Women continue to face discrimination through structural and systematic barriers that prevent them from taking leadership roles. This results in unequal access to rights. If we continue on this current trajectory, the political gender gap is expected to take more than 145 years to close. And the economic gender gap will take 265 years to close. I think we have no time for all this. So we have to act now. I think that's the reason why this morning we will have the women and also the communities. We must ensure that participation of women and girls' decision-making at the community level. We are very fortunate to have with us His Excellency Mama Ruto, a leader who is helping other women to fulfill our potential to be leaders at all levels, either is it local, regional, national, and international. Excellencies, distinguished guests, we have only 7 years left to achieve the ambitious promise of the SDG, or Sustainable Development Goals. We cannot afford to exclude women and girls. Now, more than ever, we need their voices, knowledge, expertise, and creativity. In 2021, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, we learned that an estimated 435 million women and girls are living in extreme poverty. The time for action is now. At UN Habitat, we are taking a gender transformative approach across all of our work. I strongly encourage my teams to not merely respond to the different intersectional experiences of women, but to contribute to transform the structures that continue to keep women far behind. Let me start with women's access to housing, land and property rights. Women continue to face discrimination around owning, inheriting, and administrating housing, land, and property. For example, in many contexts, women carry out the majority of labor on the land, yet they are unable to audit and effectively make decisions about its administration. This reflects the limited decision-making power within their families and communities. It places women at a far greater risk of losing access to family land, which can result in poverty, exploitation, and sexual violence. I'm very proud of the important work of my colleagues at UN Habitat, together with our partners, are doing to empower women through increasing their access to land and property rights. In Afghanistan, we are able to ensure that women are included in land titles. To the women and children of Afghanistan, we like to say that UN Habitat will stay and serve. I'm equally proud to tell you that one of our participatory planning tools, the digital Her City Toolbox. This toolbox has been applied in over 350 cities in over 100 countries. We know that cities planned with women and girls result in cities that work better for everyone. Participatory planning, particularly public spaces that take into account the needs of women and girls, become more inclusive, equal, and sustainable. Finally, let me briefly touch on our Women-Led Cities initiative, which aims to promote women leadership and economic empowerment through partnership and impact investing. We know that excluding women from urban decision-making has led poor standards of living. By empowering women leaders, the potential for transformative change is massive. Together, we can drive sustainable urbanization. Of course, addressing inequality should be everyone's main priority. This is not a job for women alone. All of us must stand for gender equality and the empowerment of women, girls, and all those discriminated against due to their gender and identity. Together we stand today, tomorrow, and going forward, because our commitment does not end with the UN Habitat Assembly alone. Our commitment to our sisters worldwide, especially to those whose voices have been excluded and silenced, carries us forward until we have achieved cities for all that are truly equal and inclusive. Finally, this session is really for you, distinguished First Lady, and for women leaders everywhere. And I'm excited to hear from you, Excellency Mama Ruto, and I know we have so much to learn from you and so much to learn from each other. Thank you. Asante sana.
Brief concept about the Office of the First Lady of Botswana. Since assuming the role of the First Lady of the Republic of Botswana, Mrs. Newa Jane Masisi prioritized the empowerment of women, adolescent girls, and youth. The First Lady deems gender-based violence, GBV, as a key priority which requires urgent action given its high prevalence and devastating impacts, particularly on women and girls in Botswana. During COVID-19, it was evident that GBV cases were on the rise, and the First Lady stepped up efforts through public awareness campaigns to sensitize the communities on this scourge using her advocacy voice. These campaigns are used as platforms to intensify the national efforts geared towards eradicating GBV, including sexual violence among women, youth, and children across the country. The First Lady is the UNAIDS Special Ambassador for the empowerment and engagement of young people in Botswana, and it is through this role that she provides leadership through advocacy, mobilizing action for young people's meaningful engagement. A strategy was developed which acknowledges that to positively change the trajectory of young people's vulnerability and end AIDS by 2030, intentional, meaningful engagement is imperative. The key thematic areas for the strategic framework are HIV and AIDS, social and economic empowerment, and mental health and wellness. Furthermore, during 2023, one priority area that will be pursued is tackling drug abuse among youth. Campaigns geared at raising awareness among youth, parents, and communities on the dangers of drug use are being rolled out. During the youth dialogues, the main objective is mainly to raise awareness on the dangers associated to drug use by young people and to engage with them on possible solutions to this problem. The First Lady has current international partnerships which she has roles in. In 2018, the First Lady of the Republic of Botswana was appointed Merck More Than a Mother Ambassador, and her mandate is to empower infertile and childless women through access to information, education, and change of mindset, to define interventions to break the stigma around infertility and raise awareness about its prevention and management. Merck Foundation also focuses on educational storybooks. In 2018, she also became a Global Hope International Council member, and her mandate is to address childhood cancer and blood disorders with the overall aim to improving pediatric cancer care in Africa. In 2019, the First Lady became a member of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development. Her mandate is to contribute to the health and well-being of children, youth, and women through advocacy, resource mobilization, and strategic partnerships.
achieving gender equity is one of the greatest opportunities for sustainable development. Yet, women who constitute over 50% of global population continue to face challenges in accessing their rights. Discriminatory laws, an uneven playing field, and unequal opportunities have impacted the well-being and economic inclusion of women in society. The Kenya government has made great progress to level the playing field through its bottom-up economic transformation plan, which is anchored on agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprise, housing, healthcare, and the digital and creative economy. The priority interventions put in place include lowering the cost of living, eradicating hunger, managing unemployment, improving fiscal performance, stabilizing foreign exchange, and ensuring inclusive economic growth. On environment and climate change, the government has committed to reduce carbon emission by 32% by 2030 and increase tree cover to at least 30% by 2032. In support of the government's efforts, the Office of the First Lady through Mama Doing Good, the organization that implements the programs of the First Lady, runs various development programs structured around three strategic pillars, namely women economic empowerment, environment and climate action, and faith diplomacy.
I believe that when women are given the right skills, tools, and opportunities, they are able to uplift themselves, their families, and their communities for the better. At Mama Doing Good, we work with women and the wider community in supporting, encouraging, and challenging them to start with the little they have.
The Women Economic Empowerment Pillar supports women's ability in the access to and control of productive resources, access to decent work, and meaningful participation in economic decision-making at all levels. Its flagship program, Joyful Women, which was launched in 2009, is based on the principles of table banking and enables group members to pool their money, save and borrow for livelihood projects based on their contributions. The women are also empowered via capacity building and trade and market access. Karakana provides the raw materials, pays the members, and thereafter takes their handicrafts to the market.
Since hizi vitambaa zikuje, nimejikeep busy, unapata ninashona the whole day, nikienda tu kwa ward, nikienda kwa ward ni kulala.
The programs we run have not only enabled women to realize their dreams, but have also empowered and given them the dignity they deserve. We understand that if you empower the woman, you empower everyone around her. And this is the positive transformation we are working towards for our communities and our nation.
The Environment and Climate Action Pillar, launched in 2020, promotes tree growing initiatives, circular, blue and green economy, nature-based enterprise, the reduction of indoor air pollution through clean energy initiatives, and the uptake of non-motorized transport for physical and mental well-being, as well as environment protection. Forest adoption and tree planting initiatives across all events are aimed at supporting Mama Doing Good goal of 500 million trees by 2032, which is in line with the government's National Tree Restoration Campaign goal to grow 15 billion trees by 2032. The Faith Diplomacy Pillar aims to promote family and national values to preserve the moral fabric of our nation. This is done through prayer, compassion, mentorship, and reconciliation. It also facilitates access to education and retention of learners in public schools in marginalized communities through provision of school meals.
Women play a vital role in shaping the ecosystems, how they operate and how they grow. It is therefore important that their voice is heard and that we apply a lens that is woman-sensitive and woman-responsive. Their participation in the conversation and in decision-making will contribute to an all-inclusive, people-centered approach, as they are always cognizant of those they care for and about. This will ensure that the spaces created for work, play, and living are fit for purpose and serve everyone well. This conversation comes at a time when we also need to include a climate-focused approach on how we create cities. For example, the inclusion of green spaces in our communities and the encouragement of non-motorized transport to reduce the impact of carbon emissions on our environment. This will also go a long way in improving our physical and mental health well-being. Thank you.
Microphone, please, for the moderator.
At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to redirect your attention to the screens once more. We're about to hear from Her Excellency Emin Erdoğan, First Lady of the Republic of Turkey.
Değerli hanımefendiler, beyefendiler, saygıdeğer katılımcılar, sizleri sevgiyle, saygıyla selamlıyorum. Daha yaşanabilir bir dünyanın inşasında öncü kuruluş olan Birleşmiş Milletler Habitat'ın bu sene ikincisi düzenlenen olağan kurulunun hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyorum. Nazik davetleri için Kenya Devlet Başkanı'nın eşi Rachel Rutto'ya ve dostum Maymuna Şerif başta olmak üzere tüm Birleşmiş Milletler Habitat ailesine şükranlarımı sunuyorum. Dünya nüfusunun büyük çoğunluğunun doğayla ilişkisini kaybetmiş yerleşimlerde yaşamaya mahkum olduğu günümüzde böylesi bir toplantının önemi gerçekten çok büyük. Şehirsel atıklar çoktan doğanın bertaraf edemeyeceği boyutlara ulaştı ve giderek küresel bir tehdide dönüşüyor. Ne yazık ki ortak evimiz dünyamızdaki 8 milyar insanla birlikte bütün canlı yaşamını etkileyen bir tehlikeden bahsediyoruz. Yeryüzündeki tüm canlılar geride varlığının, türünün izini bırakırken biz insanlar medeniyetimizin izlerini bırakıyoruz. Bizden geriye bir yandan muhteşem mimari yapılar ve sanat eserleri kalacak. Ama diğer yandan
On the other hand, we're on the verge of leaving future generations with garbage, mountains, and even a seventh continent of trash in the ocean. Yet, a large part of waste we abandon to nature consists of products that can be reused and which have not yet been completed, or which have not yet completed their life cycle. What kind of footprint we leave on the planet is entirely up to us. By making small changes in daily lives of people, we can heal the world, heal it against the disease of climate change through an eco-friendly, waste-free life. The outstanding success of the zero waste movement that we launched in Turkey in a short period of time has shown to the world how important individual human effort is for environmental problems. As a result of these achievements, 30th of March was declared International Zero Waste Day. Under the leadership of Turkey, with the valuable support of UN Habitat, an advisory board was assigned within the United Nations to guide the zero waste movement in all member countries. Undoubtedly, great strides have been made to save nature from waste that it cannot dispose of by itself. However, we still have a long way to go in an age when consumption has become the main goal. I believe the most profound change will occur when we abandon the throwaway culture and adopt a lifestyle that generates almost no waste. The spread of the global zero waste movement from country to country and people to people shows that those days are not so far away anymore. esteemed guests, we owe our success to the embracement of the project, first and foremost by our people and, of course, by our women. I believe that the achievements in Turkey and at the global level are realized and will be realized by ensuring the active participation of women in all of these processes. As a woman, I spearhead the Zero Waste movement and serve as the chair of the Zero Waste Advisory Board. I am also delighted to walk this path with my dear friend, Miss Maimuna, another woman whose environmental leadership has made her a global role model. One of my favorite proverbs in Turkish says, "The female bird builds the nest." With this saying, our ancestors emphasized women's transformative power, their resilience, their perseverance and ability to multiply beauty, as well as their inherent compassion and mercy. Like everything else, our cities are turning into more livable and sustainable places, thanks to women's ingenuity in shaping the environment and communities. I wholeheartedly believe that solutions that will shed light on humanity will be put into practice under the leadership of the pioneering women and all environmentally friendly volunteers who have come together on the occasion of this meeting. These meetings, which shape a sustainable future where we become friends with nature and where we live in harmony with the entire family of living creatures, give hope to all of us. While concluding my remarks with these feelings and these thoughts, I yearn to see the results of the second session of UN Habitat's Ordinary Assembly bring good deeds to mankind, and I congratulate everybody, and especially Ms. Maimuna, for their work. I extend my most heartfelt greetings to all of you, wishing for a world that is cleaner and healthier each day. May you all remain safe and healthy.
One more round of applause for the First Lady of the Republic of Turkey. And as she said in her remarks, the Turkish proverb, "The female bird builds the nest." It absolutely speaks to the criticality and importance of women in building and shaping the communities and cities that they call home. And that is the perfect segue into our next segment of this program. I'd like to shed the spotlight on two incredible women in this room. They live in our communities here in Kenya, and they're making a transformative change where they are. Allow me to introduce them as they make their way on stage. Rose Njoki Muratetu. She currently runs a table banking group of 12 women named Runji Enterprises. And with the capital garnered from 8 months of diligently meeting to pool funds, they plan to open a cyber cafe and later to start a cereals business. She is also the beneficiary of Karakana, which is an initiative aimed at financially empowering vulnerable members in the community, particularly women who have been incarcerated. We also will be hearing from Beatrice Achieng, and she has benefited from the Joyful Women organization, spearheaded, of course, by Her Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto. And her story is incredible, from washing clothes to support her 4 children all on her own, to becoming a certified teacher and owning several rental units. Beatrice is a testament to the strength and abundance of the spirit of a woman with a dream. Can we give them a round of applause as they make their way up?
Your Excellency, Your Excellency, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Ruto, all the protocol observed, hello. I'm Beatrice Acheng, I'm a Kenyan. I am a single mother of 4 children, and I am an ECD teacher, trained and registered by TSC. I am a HIV positive. I don't forget to say that. I'm here to talk about the Joyful Women table banking, how it has transformed my life from where I was and where I am today. But before I reach there, I just want to talk just a brief story about my life background, my childhood life background. I was born in a poor family, extreme poverty, and it was a polygamy family. My mom was a second wife, and we are so many children in our family. So our dad was not able to take care of us. Then my mom passed away in 1994 when I was 9 years old. From that year, I really passed a lot. We walked with torn clothes. We walked with torn uniforms. We went to school barefoot. We sometimes missed to go to school because of school fees. We engaged in hard labors at home to get money. Sometimes we went to school without food. We even stayed sometimes for 3 days on an empty stomach. No food, no hope, no everything. Until there is a time, I remember in 1998, when I was 13 years old, my dad introduced me to a man that was his friend, and my dad was owing him 20,000 that my dad was not able to pay back. So this man told my dad that he wanted to marry me as a second wife, and he was my father's age, and I was age of his children. My dad could not object because that was the only option. So my dad convinced me to marry him, only to find that this man was not ready to marry me, but he had just fishy missions about me. This man started to have sex with me when I was 13 years old and I was in class 7. Because he was sometimes coming to school and see the bills that are needed in school, he can pay. He used even to pick me from school and tell a teacher that he's my uncle. He picked me several times until the teacher suspected, are you sure this is your uncle? And then he was picking me from school. He goes, sleeps with me in the bush in some sugarcane plantation, and then gives me either 200 or 100 shillings. But I really needed this money because sometimes we didn't have food at home. So I was accepting to sleep with him for him to give me this money to take home for usage because of poverty. And when I did my class 8, I did my KCP in 1999. And there was no any hope of going to high school. So I came here in Nairobi to look for a job. The work I got, it was a house girl work. I did the work for 2 years, then I got tired, I went back home. And when I went back home, I got, there's a woman who connected me to another man who wanted to marry me. So I entered in the marriage to the man that I didn't know, I didn't love, we never dated. So I started life, and that time I was 16 years old. The marriage did not work because the marriage was so violent, it was so abusive. I passed through a lot, and I decided to quit because I was almost being killed. And I quit when I had 4 children. Then I came back here in Nairobi, that was in 2011. I went in a slum called Deep Sea. It is in High Range Parklands. I didn't have a job to do. I didn't have any hope in life. I started working, I started washing people's clothes. That was the thing that I was doing to earn a living. Because I had children that I had to feed. I had the rent that I had to pay, and the children were supposed also to go to school. It was so hard for me until it reached a time that I could not afford to pay my rent. And the rent at that time, it was only 1,500 shillings per month because it was a Mabati house. I was struggling so much. And I just want to thank God because of Her Excellency, our First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, because of the vision that God gave her about women. Because she came in High Range, that was in 2014. She gathered all the women in Westlands, those who live in slums, And she told us about the table banking. And I saw the idea was good, and I joined table banking. I joined the Joyful Women Table Banking in 2014. I joined one of the group, and we started saving 200 shillings per month. That was in 2014. From that time, because I was struggling so much to pay the rent, I got a house, a structure, those mabati structures in Dipsy. I bought one in 2015 at 30,000 shillings. I bought another one in 2018. So I have two structures in Dipsy that today there are some people who are living in and they're paying me rent, that 1,500. Secondly, when I joined table banking, I was enlightened and my mind opened up. When I was a child, I had a dream of becoming a teacher, but along the way, the dream died. So I didn't have hope. I didn't know if I will ever become a teacher. But when I was enlightened, I knew that I now realized that I can go back to school. So I took myself back to school as a private student in 2015. And in 2017, I did my KCSE, that is Form 4 exam, when I was 32 years old. In 2018, I joined ECD course because the grade I got enabled me to join ECD course. I did my exam in 2020. We did an exam in 2020, October, because of COVID. I got a credit. Last year, I registered by TSC, and today I'm an ECD teacher, though I'm not yet employed by the government. Through Joyful Women and table banking, today my savings are 80,000 since 2015, and I am able to take a loan of about 240,000 because in table banking we take a loan 3 times of your savings. Through table banking, my children are going to school. I got my firstborn in 2002 when I was 17 years old. And I didn't know if they will learn. But today my son is, he finished high school and he's in Pwani University. He's going to 3rd year. My secondborn is in Form 4 and all the rest are learning too. And I also have some other children that I took that I'm helping. They are orphans. 3 children I'm living with, they are going to school and they are learning. And I want to thank God for that. And my vision, my future vision is, I want to continue with my education because I only did certificate. I want to continue to pursue diploma and up to degree. I also, because in Dipsy I was living in a mabati house, I didn't like that environment because there was no toilet, the environment is dirty. I shifted from Dipsy. I'm living in a block house, though it's a single room, but the stone house is a good house that there is a toilet, there's water, there's bathroom, and there is electricity. And my plan is also, I want to engage myself into this government housing plan project. I need a good house. I need a good house. So I just hear this argument of 3%, and I want to ask Mr. President, what about us that we are not employed? How can we join that housing plan project? Because you can be able to take loan from our table banking, our chamas, pay the deposit and get a good house. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Ruth Joki. I met Her Excellency when I was in prison, Langata Women Prison, when Madam Her Excellency came there and introduced a project, Karakana, cross-stitch. So that money, she was paying us, actually, and the money helped us a lot to push that. Our children who are helpless, like my children, the father passed when I was still there, they had no education. So that money was pushed us a lot because Madam could put the money to the welfare office and the children could come and get the money. And the kind of work we were doing for cross-stitch, this is a sample for what we were doing. This is a sample of what we were doing. So the money helped us a lot. I don't know how to explain. Because in prison, there are people who are never visited, by their people. So that money for Her Excellency helped us. Even for our children, they could come and get the money, go and pay for the rent, that the mothers are not there. The money also helped us in prison, there are no sanitary towels. Sometimes you want to buy milk, you want to do this and this. And that money pushed us a lot for those who are never visited. I don't know how I can thank Her Excellency, because it is not easy to see Her Excellency coming to prisoners, to prison, to see the prisoners. After that, Madam came back, Her Excellency came back to see how the project was going on. She came and we had a dinner together, imagine, with Her Excellency. We stayed there, we could talk with her, and she left very late, around 10, which is not usual to prison. I thank Madam for considering a poor person. God bless her. After I was released from prison, that is 2020, Madam, Her Excellency invited us, the ex-prisoners, to her house to have a cup of tea. We went there, we had tea together, talking, and Madam Her Excellency introduced us to joyful women, that is table banking. I was interested with the table banking. When I left, I went and started a table banking, where by now I've saved 100,000, and the money has helped me. We meet once a month, we attend. Although I want some more people as we go on. The money has helped me, the money which I came with from prison, and around 50,000. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Your Excellency. God bless you. So that money helped me a lot. So when we went for a cup of tea to our house, when she introduced us about the joyful women, I was interested. I went and started mine and opened a company called Rogi Enterprises. So I'm doing serious, although it's a bit difficult. I am doing serious, although it's a bit difficult, but I thank God for what I am. So I don't know. I thank God for that. So, Madam, the project which is going on for the government project, we thank you, and if we only I could be assisted and get a house, I would be very happy, because even my children are jobless. I'm sick. You can see how I'm working. I have nothing. My children have no job. Madam, Her Excellency, if you consider that, I'll be happy, because Her Excellency, you are a God-fearing. Right, and God bless you. Bless you. I don't know how many blessings I'll give you. God bless you and bless you. Thank you.
One more round of applause for Beatrice and Rose. Inspiring stories there. How many of us can say we had dinner, let alone tea, with the First Lady? But thank you so much for your inspiring stories. At this juncture, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me to invite Her Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, to make her remarks.
Thank you. We may be seated. President of the Assembly, Honorable Roman Mayor Falcon, Ms. Maimuna Sharif, Under Secretary General and Executive Director, United Nations Human Settlements Program, UN Habitat, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Mheshimiwa Njeru, representatives from national and local governments of Kenya, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inaugural First Lady Roundtable at the second UN Habitat Assembly. And for the visitors, I believe you are enjoying our Kenyan hospitality. Receive warm greetings from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, who was here yesterday. Thank you, Executive Director Maimuna and the entire United Nations fraternity for your warm welcome to the United Nations office in Nairobi. I am honored to host the inaugural First Lady Roundtable, a forum to share, discuss, and agree on various approaches that will raise the profile of sustainable urban development through the voice and agency of women. The theme of today's roundtable is Women Shaping Cities and Communities, a topic that recognizes the role of women as enablers of our cities and communities to thrive as a whole. The story of Beatrice and Rose are an example of what resilience and belief in moving forward despite whatever circumstances you are in is important, and the fact that no one else can do it for you but yourself. Think of how the story of Beatrice would be if the city had her in mind. We would have wider streets because she's thinking of what it takes to hold at a minimum 2 children on each side of her as they walk home from school. The city would have paved roads that she and her family can walk on, or riding with the kids, especially on weekends as they unwind as family. Beatrice is a teacher in one of the informal settlements in Nairobi, and the children in her class have no playground. How about a walk in the park, and for the learners to play at the swings and run around in green open spaces? That kind of space and activities reminds me of my growing up days. Growing up in Kakamega County, we shared the one broken bike with my siblings on the rural roads. We would have the time of our lives as we went rolling at high speed down the valley, many times with no brakes. The feeling of joy and freedom was priceless. Ladies and gentlemen, such cities are possible if we commit to be inclusive and sustainable. Vienna City is an example we can learn from as we think of how our cities and communities can be more sustainable, especially with women in mind. Vienna's government has made the city safer and a more convenient place for women after incorporating a gender lens into urban design. Improvement of public facilities, including improving street lighting, made parks more accessible to young girls, widened pavements, and designed neighborhoods helped meet the social needs of women. Kenya has made its positive strides through street lighting in conjunction with the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, modernized markets with some having daycare facilities, remodeled public parks, and walking and cycling lanes in some of our major towns.
The woman is the mirror of the society. If she is marginalized, the community is oppressed. If strengthened, the community is empowered. Women must be at the table when planning for our cities and communities. A woman in the society atom, indeed, without her nothing would exist. I believe that if women are given the right opportunities and tools, they have the power to uplift themselves and their communities. This is the reason why I advocate for and insist that women must be at the center of shaping cities and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, SDG 11 focuses on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. More than 50% of the world's population live in cities, and by 2050, an estimated 7 out of 10 people will likely live in urban areas. In developing countries, this increase continues to be driven by rural-urban migration in search of employment and business opportunities. Cities are key drivers of economic growth globally and contribute more than 80% of global GDP. A growing younger generation is another key driver for urban population growth. This urban population explosion has resulted in several challenges, such as insufficient housing, the growth of informal settlements, inadequate solid waste management, to name but a few. Green spaces and tree cover are greatly affected in an effort to make room for human settlements. There is an increase in air and noise pollution and carbon emission from motor vehicles. Ladies and gentlemen, the local scenario is not different from the global experience. Urbanization is changing how Kenyans live. It is estimated that by 2030, 34% of Kenyans will be living in urban areas. Kenya has a deficit of 200,000 houses annually, and the government is encouraging investments in affordable housing. Affordable housing is a key part of the government's bottom-up economic plan, with a goal to restore the dignity of informal settlement dwellers. It's every woman's goal to own a house and have the security that her family has, an assurance of a decent roof over their head. The Kenyan government has a plan to grow the number of affordable mortgages from the current 30,000 to 1 million by 2032. Devolution, for instance, in Kenya has seen urban migration diluted from the capital city to county headquarters by creating opportunities for employment and investment. Government investment in affordable and sustainable transport systems, the upgrade of transport infrastructure are key for better management of urban areas. Mama Doing Good has launched several programs to positively shape our cities and communities. I shall delve deeper into the thematic areas during the roundtable discussion. I'm confident that the outcomes from today's dialogue shall go a long way in supporting and attaining SDG 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities, and through SDG 5, which is equality. We shall amplify the voice of our women through involving them in the pursuit of inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable communities. With those few remarks, I wish to officially launch the First Lady Roundtable and look forward to our engagement towards enhancing sustainability of our cities and communities. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and may God bless you.
One more round of applause for Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Rachel Ruto. And as she said in her speech, we are amplifying the voices of women. Our next presentation comes from a Botswana poet. Her name is Changwangwa Dema. She is the author of The Careless Seamstress and the winner of the Sillerman First Book Prize. Can we give her a hearty round of applause as she makes her way up?
Thank you, Victoria, for that introduction and for observing all protocols. Dumelang, good morning. I am honored to be here with you today as you consider these pressing issues around women shaping cities and communities. The poetic text that I have chosen to share with you today is, of course, an occasion poem, rather than a traditionally lyrical or typical poem, but I trust that you will find some measure of music as well as meaning within its language. This is a common interest. 1. What will we tell our daughters when they ask us? When years from now they say to us, where were the women? When the faces staring at them from history books and monuments and fancy phones still look nothing like them, what will we tell them when the word place does not seem to include them? If it is culture which keeps us here, hesitant, shadow-like, tied to less than $2 a day and not some chain of habit masquerading as tradition, then our choices will survive these questions. There are rights gifted to each of us at birth, not least of which should be a life worth living, health and happiness, equal, at least until gravity and DNA's lottery drag forth voice box or breast. Then suddenly sanity clambers back down between appendage and good sense. Only we who claim the word woman can inhabit this war-torn skin and call it home. I have heard young girls, tomorrow's women, whisper to each other. They say mothers must choose carefully the tongues with which they do not speak to their daughters. The things we do not say often mean and say more than we ever could. This is how we are made invisible, vulnerable. I meant to write you a poem, but there are those who will say that a silent woman is a gift from God, that poems are not meant to be sung out loud like the words women whisper to a young bride about the pride to be found in silence. I say sing, poem. Sing your song any way you know how, any way you know would seem loud in this quiet. Because until it is not one woman plucked, made exceptional, while the rest of her tribe labors under some invisible cloak, until it is as commonplace as the rising of the sun, then we must all stay with the trouble of doing better. If we all say, what trouble I see is not mine, if we are faithful only to ourselves, what shall we tell those daughters when they ask, what of everyone else? 2, the architect must decide, shelter or settlement, play or pause, hurry past or feel lost. She must ask what makes a city livable. Do bricks and mortar without breath, without blood pulsing in giggling childish bodies make a life worth living? When we see a house with large cracks building homes in its walls, we wonder at its foundations. Let us wonder now at our own. Let us ask, what will we tell her? 3, I did not mean to speak so heavily of such matters. Instead, I meant to write you a poem, all of you. I meant to say to you that you have only to look around to know that you have done something well. But the words are their own God. They come how and when they please, and today they choose to leave me with nothing more to say except that if it were enough to stand here and say absolutely nothing, then perhaps we would do away with poems and words and summits such as these. But it is not enough for a life to be called lived and to not show the princes and ourselves that there is no damsel in distress. We are all in crisis. She too is fetching and laying, hauling pen and paper and brick. Tell them that we have always been builders and fire people. We too are the keepers of the realm. It is our hand at the helm, and there is no end to our story. But I really did mean to write you a poem, the happiest poem in the world, to lay it down brick by brick, to set before you a window through which to see your cities, their familiar faces, floors and doors, your marketplaces and hospital corridors. I wanted to write you a poem, but what time is given us is borrowed, precious, and this one earth, this one home given us is where we must name each other, hold each other. For we are not static, we sprawl, transform, we are haulers and diggers, dragging and lifting. Our paths meet and cross, diverge and re-meet at a common interest, to serve, to listen to voices that may not second our own. Here, today, in this room, we are all of us architects of the heart. We must listen to the dirt and the dirge, the cultured and the quirky, to the stroller and the stranger, to the one saying, and me, where do I belong? Like water, our design must take the shape of their desires. For here we are at another beginning, another foundation. So I ask you, what measures and markers shall we put in place? Out of these trenches, our boots and heels knee-deep in mud and making, we must wonder how level our gaze is. What shall we remove and what shall we keep? What string shall we choose? Will it be telling or listening? Who will dig and who will pour? This is where we split open or hold tight. For history should not only remember kings, it should remember all those who dare to tell their story. I ask you now, will you finally give us something to remember, something to tell our daughters? Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, that was Chawangwa Dema, a Botswana poet from Botswana. Thank you so much. We will now get into our round table discussion. Allow me to quickly make my way to the front stage. And this discussion will focus on the key role of women. That has been a current theme and recurring theme in the speeches and the deliberations today of how women are shaping the cities and communities that they call home. So allow me to invite on stage with me Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Rachel Ruto. As well as the UN Habitat Executive Director, Madam Maimuna Mohammed Sharif. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you both for joining me. You may take your seats. Thank you. Your Excellency, let me begin with you. You cycled over 10 kilometers this morning from State House all the way to the UN complex. And many are wondering, with the elements, because it was raining at that time, why did you do that?
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria. So cycling has really been part of my life. I grew up in Western Province. That was the former Western Province, now Kakamega County. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Victoria. So actually we've cycled this morning about 10.8 kilometers. I was born in Western Kenya, and you know, what we do in Western Kenya, in Kakamega County especially, is we love cycling. So growing up, we had a small bicycle. My father had bought like for my older siblings, and we kept passing it from one person to another. So I learned cycling, and the passion never left me. So many years later, after I came to the city of Nairobi, I bought a bicycle also, and I continued cycling. But what really happened was during COVID-19, we realized that everybody was locked, and there was nothing much that was happening. So I got the community around where I lived, and we started a cycling community with the young people and just the neighbors. And so we have been cycling from that time. and we called it Mama Cycling. And of course, many other things followed because we realized that as we were cycling in the streets or the roads of Kenya, we realized that there was no cycling paths, for the cyclists. We were actually sharing the road with the motorists, and many other times you'd be pushed off the road. And so we thought this would not just be about cycling, but at least it's good so that we can at least become advocates of a just road system in Kenya. And of course, issues of environment, because you realize that when you cycle, there's no much emission, the pollution that we emit into the environment. So we thought, of course, we could continue cycling. And now we have a very big community, and we've just joined other many cyclists in Kenya because already there were other communities cycling.
Before I bring Madam Edie on, let me ask you this. Your video shared a lot about your organization, Mama Doing Good. How did it all begin?
Mama Doing Good actually began with what Beatrice talked about, which is the Joyful Women Organization, a dream that I got about 25 years ago. And I was in the rural areas, and I saw a woman that did not have shoes, yet was very happy. And so I wondered what we could do to really help this woman. And in 2009, through the help of the then Poverty Eradication Commission by the government, we established Joyful Women Organization, which is a table banking program that brings together women to do table banking, like to have a bank on the table. And so from the Joyful Women, we have moved on into the Mama Cycling, and now we are doing environment, and all our programs are under the Mama Doing Good. We just want to do good, Victoria. And in Mama Doing Good, we say we do it the right way, because sometimes you may be doing good that you don't do it the right way. So that is how Mama Doing Good was established in 2021, to bring together all the programs when I was the spouse of the Deputy President and now the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Madam Edie, you mentioned in your speech that we only have 7 years left to achieve the commitments of the SDGs, not a long time. What do you suggest we can do to ensure that no one is left behind, and especially women?
Thank you very much, Victoria, for that question. I think we are less than 7 years left. I remember I even calculated the number of days when in my closing speech during the World Urban Forum in Katowice last year. I think from the example that we have seen just now, from the video, and then from the poet, and also from the life example that Beatrice and another madam who came up and shared the life story, I think what we need is that leadership. Leadership is very, very important in whatever that we want to achieve. Leadership that put people at the center. Leadership that is not in a way that is brave enough to go to the ground and engage with everyone. I think that is what we are here when we look into this UN Habitat Assembly 2. We're also looking into the engagement. That's why the theme is like the sustainable urban future and true effective and efficient multilateralism. When you talk about multi-level decision making, it's from the global, from the national, from the regional, and also to the local. Do you have seen the life example from Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto, from the First Lady of Botswana, and also the First Lady of Turkey? I think this is very important in terms of, one is leadership and commitment and political will. Second is the engagement, the participation of women in the decision making in every stage, either is at the community stage, at the city stage, or even at the country level and the global level. I think this is the participation of women. That's why the Secretary General he's want to see that at every level in the UN there must be at least 50-50. At my level, he already reached 50. Now it's on my burden to make sure that at the UN Habitat there must be 50-50. So that is in terms of participation. And third is that we have to look into the giving them the space. What I meant the space here is that for them, for the women to really give the space to share their talent, because as Excellency Mama Rachel Russo mentioned just now, that half of the population will live in cities, and in our studies, more than 50% of the world population will be women. And you can see that if we don't give these women opportunity, is a loss of opportunity, a loss of labor, a loss of knowledge and talent. So I think we need to be inclusive and giving them the space. So my answer is that leadership, commitment, political commitment, and participation, and giving them the opportunity and the space for women. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam ED. Your Excellency, the last 2 days, the conversations have been around shaping sustainable communities and cities. When you talk about the work that Mama Doing Good is actually doing, what does it look like when it comes to making that happen, shaping sustainable cities and communities?
I think it is possible, Victoria, just like the issues we have seen even Beatrice and Rose talk about. We see every woman desires to live in a city and desires to live in a good house. And so if, like my sister Maimuna has said, policies would come, for example, the cycling we have done this morning, just making sure that, we have pavements for cyclists and pedestrians, and issues of what the First Lady of Turkey has said, issues of waste management, then everybody would live in a good environment. Issues of greening spaces in the cities, and, even just our children, the way I talked about, every child, has a tricycle, teaching our children how to cycle. Then I think if we have clean cities, then I think we will shape this conversation we are talking about today.
Absolutely. Madam ED, you talked about having more participation of women at every level and how important it is to have them there and their presence. But can you tell us a bit more about UN Habitat and what it's doing to empower more women leaders in the cities and the communities?
Thank you so much. In UN Habitat, and I personally am a woman and an urban planner, and I believe that a city planned by women for women is also a city planned and safe for men. Do you agree with me? Because if it's safe for women, definitely safe for men. So that is the indicators. So in UN Habitat, we are dealing a lot of urban planning, urban design. We give expertise to the cities, to the member state in terms of planning, in terms of urban design, in terms of guidelines of safe city, or guidelines on resilient city, or a guideline on healthy city, where we work together with World Health Organization, for example, on healthy city. We work together with UNICEF on the safe city for children. We work also together with FAO on the urban farming. So to me is that UN Habitat, we have two ways of looking at it. One is on our normative work. We prepare the guideline. We also give this expertise. We did also sharing and helping the government and the cities to do their city planning, because what Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto mentioned just now, if you don't design the city for cycling, can you cycle? And if you don't design, I remember that when she mentioned that you would like to hold the hand of the Beatrice want to like to hold the hands of the two children when coming back from school. If we don't have the pedestrian walkways, we cannot do that. So I think this is the work of UN Habitat, and we also would like to share. We have the Her City tools, apps. Maybe you can download Her City 2 apps, where we develop to engage the women how to design and how to plan their own cities. That is one. And second is also we have the program on the public spaces. We engage with community, we engage with the women, how to make the public space, for example, like safe for women. And in our work also in very, I would like to share with you our work in Afghanistan. When we work on the giving the land title, we also managed to convince the government to put in the wife name on the land title. And I was pleasantly impressed when I went to Afghanistan when we want to give to issue the land title. And on the stage there is one man and there is two ladies walking behind. I said, why there is two ladies there? Because this man have two wives. So even the man has two wives, the two wives' name is on the land title. So I think this is the work on our global land tool network. I can give you many other examples that we are doing at the moment now. And what we would like to do is that in all our program on the ground, I already put the checklist. How is this related to the women participation? Our program on the ground, we have around 90, served within 90 countries. So during the approval of the program, one of the checklists is how much that we can, how can this program elevate or strengthen or give more opportunity for women, not only to use, but also to be actively involved in terms of social, economic, or even psychology, because now mental health is very, very important also these days. So these are the areas, both normative and also the operational part of our work on the ground. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Madam ED. Let me come to you, Your Excellency, as we wrap up this round table. And how do you leverage your position as First Lady of Kenya to scale up, to enhance the program's outreach across the communities in this country?
Thank you, Victoria. So what we are doing in the office of the First Lady is just following on the footsteps of the President, especially on the bottom-up economic agenda for the country. And that is why you can see in our programs, everything is trying to lift the person that is at the bottom of the pyramid. So when you look at the women economic empowerment that we do, where we have 12,000 groups across the country, you've heard Rose talk about her group, Beatrice has her group. Those are just 2 groups in the city, but we have about 12,000 groups across the country. So we are doing women economic empowerment just to empower that woman, you know, with financial inclusion, financial health, livelihoods, trade, and MSc, and so on and so forth. And the other thing, of course, is on the environment and climate action. So we are teaching the women that they need to take care of the environment. Of course, you know that the President has the restoration program on the trees to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. So at the Office of the First Lady, we are going to be planting 500 million trees, and we have already started planting several of them. In fact, this week, we are going to Kakamega Forest, where I've adapted 200 hectares, about 500 acres, and we are going to be planting 30,000, you know, just to support, you know, the government program. And issues of also just mercy works, you know, working in the informal settlements, you know, helping like children like those ones of Beatrice, because we realize that many children in the informal settlements fend for the family instead of going to school. So we have a school feeding program where we feed public schools. And so we have seen an influx into the schools because now there is food. And in the process of the children getting food, they get an education. And you know, Victoria, they say education is an equalizer. You can see the story of Beatrice just because she has added to her education. Now she's an ECD teacher, and that is the story we want for all our communities. Also in my office, we have what we call the 5 C's, and what we do is to convene, connect, collaborate, catalyze, and celebrate. So I'm working with spouses of our members of parliament, our governors, our senators, our clergy. I'm just working with women in general to be able
to convene meetings for them, to be able to collaborate with them. And one of the things that we are collaborating with all the spouses is actually on environment and climate action, because it's no longer a luxury. It's no longer like, something that we thought we could just do as CSR and just do something on the side. But we are very deliberate, because in Kenya, we experienced the worst drought that we had not had for 40 years. And this is as a result of the environmental issues. So that is what we are doing in my office, and we continue to do the work that we've been doing with women economic empowerment. We have added environment and climate action and issues of faith diplomacy, which has Mercy Works, and working with our young people. So it's an exciting space, and we know that we have many partners that we are collaborating with. UN Habitat is one of them. That is why we are here today, just to be in this conversation of shaping cities, and really telling women to be able to sit on the table in order to shape their cities. So that is what we are doing.
Thank you so much. Can I get a round of applause for my distinguished panel, Her Excellency, Mama Rachel Ruto, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, and the UN Habitat Executive Director, Maimuna Sharif. Thank you so much. You may take your seats. Wonderful. And at this juncture, I believe we have an intervention from the floor. As I mentioned earlier in the program, we have Honorable Filda Kereng, the Minister for Environment and Tourism from the Republic of Botswana. You may take the podium to make a few remarks.
Thank you so very much, Madam Moderator. May I respect Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, my friend, Executive Director, UN Habitat, distinguished guests, I greet you this morning. Habari za asubuhi. I thought I spoke good Kiswahili. I'm just going to, let me appreciate the opportunity to make some intervention as the Minister of Environment and Tourism, which also is benefiting quite a lot from these discussions, and to also appreciate the presentations and the messages that we have been getting from the First Ladies, just to demonstrate that building cities just requires the right positioning of women. And once we have done that, and they lead it from the highest topmost level of leadership in their countries, we can see we are going the right direction. Let me make a few remarks and say that the women and environment and habitats and settlements and planning for economic, livelihood, social advancement, this Assembly is going to help us actually to do much, much better. The issue of housing, ensuring that women at home are safe, they are secure, and they can thrive as mothers, as wives to their husbands, and as community builders. The attention to proper housing is very critical, and we want to appreciate every effort all nations are actually giving attention to ensure that people, first of all, wake up from a safe environment. Then they can go to work, they can lead, they can go and do business, and they can actually live and live longer. The attention of this thematic General Assembly on the issue of ensuring that women, women in trade and livelihood endeavors can actually thrive in those vocations. We see women in poverty, like we've already mentioned, Your Excellencies, that women have to feed their families, they have to get food, they have to get incomes, and thank you for your testimony, Madam, how you managed to actually travel through the hard surfaces for you to be able to be where you are. They go to the farms, they collect farm produce, they need to sell it to get money to buy uniform and to buy food and other things. Are they safe in the spaces where they have to move from one place to the other, go to the bush, some of them to collect veil products, wild fruits in our country, we have a lot of, they have to collect firewood, they have to collect different kinds of products from the veld, from the forest. Are they safe to come home and find their families and provide for them? We're talking about, planning for ease of doing business, ease of trading. We have women in my country who have to travel across the borders to South Africa to buy products to come and sell. Is transportation, is ease of movement, allowing them to do so. And when they come back with those products, they are trading along the streets, in open areas. Climate change issues, rain is coming. Will they trade that day? If they don't trade because the space is not safe for them, it's going to be raining and windy. Will the food that they prepare, along the streets, be assisted by a clean environment where I'll be able to comfortably buy that food, and eat? Are they accessible in terms of the spaces where they trade? Can business thrive for them in the neighborhoods, or they have to travel kilometers with a wheelbarrow, with a whole load of stuff in their head and a baby just to go and sell the products they have? This is the things that you want to acknowledge, that, what we have been hearing for the First Ladies is that these are things that have to be attended by policy, by strategic intentional programs, and also by support. We're talking about, the importance of women in leadership. When women have the place in leadership, then they plan from their heart and from the proper knowledge, adequate knowledge, full knowledge of what it takes, to be able to bring a family, a community, and a nation to the right standard of living, enforcing justice and speaking out, and be able to be relevant in decision-making. So the issues of poverty, vulnerability to gender-based abuse, being excluded from mainstream programming, the weight of responsibility, safety, and sometimes, the conflict between law enforcement, national planning, sometimes when we have to, exact bylaws, evicting people from spaces, do we put attention to the fact that we are evicting women who just have to make a living for that day? So law enforcement policies must also, be in sync with the need of women. I want to touch on very briefly on thematic interventions, just to summarize and to add my voice to it. Cities for all that are responsive and resilient and adapted to climate change, conditions. Being able to have the right infrastructure, do we have the right roads, the bridges? Can people actually move easily, from one place to the other? Do we have the right connectivity in terms of different settlements where, to come from one area or one side of the city to another, it's with ease? And are they accessible if you need to buy their products, or they have to get their products, to the market? And also to talk about the safety in the trading spaces and living spaces, where we talk about robberies, we talk about, petty crimes, health and sanitation, as I've already mentioned. Inclusive planning, I said, women shaping cities, they will shape it with knowledge, with experience, with a heart and a passion to see life being balanced for all. The importance of research and data, we cannot leave it not emphasized. What do we know about the changing trends about where women and men coexist, and what are the figures in terms of, indicators that we want to achieve, and how can we report on what interventions are able to give us? So we need to make sure that we can attend to the issue of research, data, policy reforms, strategic programs, and investments. I think there was an issue about where should we put investments in terms of achieving, women, gender, a balanced and just society in action for economic development. We need to invest in the health of women and girls, and ultimately of families and communities and the nation. We know that there is rising mental health issues now. We need to make sure that health, attends to building, the health resilience of women. We also need to attend to issues of confidence, self-esteem, the sense of beauty and worth. You can't have a woman thriving if they don't believe they can do it. But as leaders, we must be able to assist women and girls to understand that they can, that they have it, and they are able, and then we must be able to provide that support. We also need to invest on protection, because, protective environments are key. In Botswana, we have a toll-free line, based only focusing on gender-based reporting. So people are easy, I can easily access, police services, health, and so forth when there are incidences. And we also have invested in specialized courts, just dealing with gender-based violence cases. We also have gender and child protection branches within the police services and standard operating procedures. So investments in institutional reforms, institutional structures, where we have, additional or targeted services that need resourcing like manpower, like finances, and so forth. Also, the issue of gender-based violence as it grew, or it rose during COVID-19, we realized the need for more safe centers, where women or abused or victims can actually be protected while services are being sought out for them. Technology and innovation, how can we leverage into that? Child care centers, resourcing NGOs and CBOs, non-state actors, so that they have the capacity to help us to advocate and also deliver services to others, like the projects we have been hearing about. We also need to invest in economic empowerment programs, because we realize that when we empower women economically, there will be less dependence on perpetrators where the case is like that. So economic empowerment programs like what I heard about the banking thing, access to finance, access to investments, access to, money in pesa, so that people can just be able to thrive in their lives. I think I would want to round up by saying that, leadership and leaders, first ladies and us all, must take it upon themselves to help others to reach where we are so we can influence decisions. So young girls and women are waiting for us to actually help us lead them along and show them the way. And I want to encourage UN Habitat, first ladies, that let's work on programs that can collate documentaries, success stories, projects, those toolkits that can help people to access direction and guidance. And let us also work on programs that can help us, do exchange programs, inspire one another, connect the continent, within the continent, sub-regions. Let us rise so that we can be able to work together. Make openings for us as leaders, for you as leaders, to connect with others around the world so that we can enhance this level of influence. We have young girls and women who need to be healed because they have gone through abusive, experiences. So the healing of such, I just want to say that I am encouraged and much inspired, because as the Minister of Environment, the project that the First Lady of Kenya is doing on environment and climate change, I'm going to run after it so that we get help. We are going to get ideas and knowledge from you, and we want to be able to connect with you on that line through our First Lady, so that we are going to start a new campaign on tree planting, and these ideas are just fit for what we want to do. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so inspired, and I think that we are all. We want to emphasize the fact that to build a city with women first takes building the women as cities, because women are cities of life. So if we clean them out of all the things that are not supposed to be, and we empower them, and we make them beautiful, and we make them, strong entities, then they will rise up and build cities with us. God bless you. Thank you very much.
One more round of applause for Honorable Filda Kereng, Minister for Environment and Tourism from the Republic of Botswana. Your Excellency, distinguished delegates, as we come to the close of this inaugural First Ladies Roundtable, a few takeaways that stuck out from the conversations and speeches that we had this morning. First, women's access to housing, to land, to property rights is not a nice to have. It's an absolute necessity. Secondly, cities that are planned with women and girls result in cities that work for every one of us. And lastly, promoting women's leadership and economic empowerment through partnerships and impact investing is a non-negotiable if we are to see cities that are truly equal and truly inclusive. And I want to leave you with a beautiful reminder from nature and the Turkish proverb that it is the female bird that builds the nest. It's been an absolute pleasure to be your host and moderator for this session. My name is Victoria Rubadiri. Have a lovely rest of the day.
I thank all speakers for telling us what to do right in human settlements is in an urbanizing world. Also because it's women's vision what our cities' public spaces need, since public policies on housing, mobility, or infrastructure structure our own communities. Also because they live the cities in a whole different way than men do. I thank Victoria for moderating this session. Our Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto, thank you very much, and I wish to express our sincere gratitude for this wonderful opportunity. Madam Executive Director, thank you so much for this brilliant idea. May I, on behalf of UN Habitat Assembly and on behalf of all delegations that have come into Nairobi, thank our honorable guest, Her Excellency Mrs. Rachel Ruto. I bid farewell to the First Lady, and we will resume about in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Now I call the next speaker on the list, that distinguished representative, Honorable Mr. Eric Feinulin, Minister of Construction, Housing and Utilities of Russian Federation. Go ahead, please.
It's a video, so could you, Egle, could you put it on now, please? With the permission of Russia Federation, if we could move on to the next speaker so that we cue the video for play, if that's okay.
I now call the next speaker on the list, the distinguished...
Russia Federation wants the floor.
Okay, so
Russia Federation.
Go ahead, Russia Federation, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. As we understand it, technical problems have arisen with screening the video of the Minister of Construction, Housing and Utilities of the Russian Federation, Mr. Fazulin. Now, in this respect, we would like to be informed when the technical difficulties will be overcome. If, should it not be possible to overcome these technical difficulties, we could read the statement which the Minister was about to read himself.
Well, if the representative of Russia can read its introduction, we will be okay, instead of using the video.
Chair, we would of course prefer to have the video of the Minister screened, and if the technical services could do this during the course of the morning session, our preference would be to have the video screened. Should this prove to be impossible, however, then we will be ready to read the statement from our seats here. Thank you.
Yes, we'll go ahead with Poland before we resume with the technical difficulties of the video. So if there's no problem, we'll start with Poland. I call on the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Honorable Mrs. Malgorzata Jarosinka-Helsnak, Secretary of State, Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy of Poland. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, dear ministers, dear participants of UN Habitat Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. Poland's government efforts to implement the Sustainable Development Goals and the new urban agenda are strongly present at all levels and dimensions of functioning at the international, European Union or national levels. Already in April 2019, Poland committed to the implementation of the new UN New Urban Agenda to the strategic UN guidelines and documents on urban policy are strongly present in the most important strategic documents on urban development in Poland, namely the National Urban Policy 2030. This document was adopted by the Polish government in June last year and fully presented during the 11th session of the World Urban Forum in Katowice in Poland. Urban areas' challenges interact and influence each other. Therefore, urban development measures should be guided by a multi-sectoral and multi-dimensional approach. It would allow to reflect, on the one hand, the complexity and interconnections of problems occurring in urban spaces, and on the other hand, to propose an effective response to the formulated challenges of the national urban policy. In recent years, several projects and initiatives have been developed in Poland to promote sustainable development in cities. One of them is Clean Air Program, which supports thermomodernization and replacement of heat sources in houses, with the aim to improve air quality in the whole country. We were also actively working on the revitalization projects in our cities. As the legacy of the 11th session of the World Urban Forum, we prepared a special project called Action Plan for Cities. It aimed to mobilize Polish cities to take action towards sustainable transformation and implementation of the SDGs at the local level. In conclusions, I would like to stress that throughout 8 years of implementation of the 2030 Agenda, we have introduced many solutions to foster sustainable development in its 3 dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative, Honorable Mrs. Malgorzata Dzielinska, Secretary of the State of Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy of Poland. I now call the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, the Honorable Mr. Irek Fainsulin, Minister of Construction, Housing and Utilities of the Russian Federation. Thank you. This is the video, please.
Yes, Igor, please play the video. Thank you.
Distinguished college, the Russian Federation traditionally supports the key role played by the UN Habitat within the UN system. This institution contributes to the strengthening of the national capacities of UN member states and promoting international cooperation in the field of urban development. Russia is a responsible member of the Executive Board of UN Habitat. Now, initiatives are underway under the auspices of the Joint Smart City project with UN Habitat to develop digital technologies in urban management. The Russian Federation appreciates the current level of interaction with UN Habitat. We support the efforts of the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Ms. Sharif, aimed at making the program more effective and results-oriented. Now, we are grateful for the assessment of the positive changes in our capital, Moscow, and we are interested in exchange of experience with foreign colleagues and the implementation of state-of-the-art technologies for housing construction. I wish all participants in the second session of the UN Habitat Assembly productive work and effective solutions. Thank you. Dear colleagues,
I thank the distinguished representative, Honorable Mr. Irek Fainsulin, Minister of Construction, Housing and Utilities of the Russian Federation. I now call next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Honorable Mrs. Sita Gurung, Minister for Urban Development of Nepal.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, let me extend my sincere congratulations to the Executive Director of UN Habitat and the team of the convening of the second session of the UN Habitat Assembly and the best wishes for the successful completion of the session. The COVID-19 pandemic impact was intense due to the pre-existing challenges. It has been a pushback in achieving SDGs and our aspiration to graduate from the status of LDC by 2026. We are already witnessing extreme impact of climate events regardless of negligible contribution to the emission of greenhouse gas. Urbanization is rapid in Nepal, with 2/3 of population concentrated in urban and urbanizing settings. It has been brought opportunities and challenges. We believe Accelerating the implementation of the new urban agenda is critical to guide sustainable urbanization. We are committed to taking action to ensure adequate housing with the basic service and inclusive planning. Nepal's constitution makes a strong foundation for housing for all. We promulgated the Right to Housing Act in 2018, which opened new avenues of the cooperation to reinforce our commitment to housing for all. After the 2015 earthquake, we showcased the best practice of building back better and built 1 million houses. We are working on planning forward better. Our citizen housing program and safe citizen housing program cater to ending poverty and reducing inequalities. Nepal is graduate from the LTC status by 2026 and is committed to achieve SDG by 2030 and net zero emission by 2045. We have prioritized improving access the networking of settlement with urban corridor and special focus on the settlement in the Himalaya regions. We co-hosted this year's of the International Special Planning Platform Conference with Japan government and UN Habitat. Honorable Chair, I confirm Nepal's commitment of collaboration with the international community to address the global challenges. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative, Honorable Mrs. Sita Godaung, Minister for Urban Development of Nepal. I now call the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Mr. Abubakar Alagui, Minister of Housing and Construction from Libya.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President of the United Nations Human Settlements, Madam Maimuna Sharif, the Executive Director of the program, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to extend to you the greetings of the Libyan government and people. We wish you all success in the works of the Second Assembly of the UN Programme for Human Settlements. It is my pleasure and pride to take part in the works of this session. I would like to reiterate our commitment to achieve reconstruction and development through the initiative launched by His Excellency the Prime Minister. Our goal is to complete our development project that have been halted for more than 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Libya reiterates the importance of the outcome of the first assembly and this current assembly, as well as the objective of the strategy of the program 2020-2023. Ladies and gentlemen, as a result of the conditions that we have been facing in Libya that have hindered our development efforts and our urban development efforts, we have embarked on programs to revitalize our projects and to implement our infrastructure as well as development efforts that have been halted for over 10 years. We have adopted urgent measures to achieve urbanization in the country. We have also adopted a national program to provide decent housing for our youth. We reiterate our commitment to continuing our efforts to achieve our urban development plans. I wish you all success. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative, Honorable Mr. Abubakar Al-Gawi, Minister of Housing and Construction from Libya. I now call the next speaker on the list, the representative, Mr. Roy Alan Jimenez, Vice Minister of Housing and Human Settlements from Costa Rica.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Costa Rica
endorses the statements made by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China, and we reiterate the speech given yesterday as the pro tempore chair of GRULAC. Allow me to take this opportunity to thank the Executive Director for her work and the work that is done by UN Habitat in promoting a sustainable urban future. Furthermore, Costa Rica thanks the government of Kenya for its hospitality. I am honored to address you today in the UN Habitat Second General Assembly, a flagship entity in setting the political framework for reaching the common objective of increasing the quality of life in cities and human settlements by focusing on promoting inclusion, resilience, sustainability, and strategies to face multiple global crises, such as the consequences of the pandemic, inequality, and climate change. The challenges faced by cities and human settlements are of growing complexity and require concerted effort by all stakeholders. Urbanization is not just a national problem, but a global one. And for a sustainable urban future, the only way to get there is through inclusive and effective multilateralism. One of the main challenges faced by cities currently is climate change. To tackle this challenge, we must adopt a holistic approach, integrating mitigation and adaptation in urban design and planning. As part of a joint effort, Costa Rica and Colombia submitted the resolution Biodiverse and Resilient Cities, whose objective is to solve the disconnect that exists between cities and nature, and therefore raise global consciousness around the importance of incorporating biodiversity and resilience in urban planning. Furthermore, Costa Rica has made an effort to push forward localization and implementation of the SDGs by creating the network for cantons which are promoting SDGs, which brings together 45 cantons throughout the country and has managed to locate SDGs throughout more than half of the country. This recognition consists in a series of steps and key actions that local governments have to take in order to implement SDGs, and they have a platform to share best practices with other local governments in order to increase cooperation and efficiency. Finally, we want to highlight the growing problem of the impact of social inequalities in our cities. This is something that affects the most vulnerable groups. And in order to deal with this, we have to promote inclusive and participative government. Thank you.
Representative Mr. Roy Alan Jimenez, Vice Minister of Housing and Human Settlements of Costa Rica. And I call the next speaker on the list, the distinguished Representative Honorable Mr. Jan Fluxa, Vice Minister of Regional Development of Czech Republic.
Thank you, Chair, Ministers, Executive Director, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me say that Czechia fully aligns itself with the statement delivered on behalf of the European Union and its member states. We very much welcome the thematic focus of this Assembly and the report of the Executive Director. Czechia is a highly urbanized country. The support of sustainable urban development therefore stands as a long-term and crucial priority for the Czech government. Shortly after the adoption of the new urban agenda in 2016, we prepared a detailed implementation plan to monitor the achievements of individual targets. In line with the priorities outlined in the thematic report, we are currently implementing a number of measures in support of affordable housing or climate protection and environmental sustainability, both on national and local levels. But lately, like other countries in the region, we have been facing a major challenge in terms of managing the vast influx of refugees coming from Ukraine as a result of the unprovoked and unjustified Russian war of aggression against this country. Sadly, we do not need to look any further for an example of the nature of this war than this morning when we heard of the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam, a reservoir of potable water for many in southern Ukraine. There cannot be any doubt that Russian forces aimed once again at harming ordinary people and damaging Ukraine's civil infrastructure. And it is just as evident that such unjustified attacks undermine the implementation of the SDGs and the new urban agenda which we collectively strive to achieve. In this context, I also wish to underscore that Czechia continues to support Ukraine and is ready to assist with its post-war recovery and construction. I would like to stress that we should concentrate on strengthening international cooperation, and especially between the already existing platforms. Czechia proposes that UN Habitat initiates the system of permanent cooperation with all 5 UN regional economic committees with their relevant subsidiary bodies, which are directly involved in housing and urban development issues. In conclusion, allow me to express my firm belief that the negative trend of falling behind in SDGs implementation can still be reversed if we all unite and work together. I can assure you that Czechia is fully prepared to actively cooperate towards achieving these goals. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative, Honorable Mr. Jan Fluxa, Vice Minister of Regional Development of the Czech Republic. I now call on the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Mr. Solomon Green, Deputy Assistant Secretary from the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Executive Director, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and stakeholders. I am honored to lead the U.S. delegation to the Second UN Habitat Assembly on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration and the U.S. Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge. We welcome the opportunity to engage on the Assembly's timely theme of building and supporting sustainable and inclusive cities in times of global crisis. We meet today emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic and facing unprecedented global challenges. From the growing climate crisis to refugee and food emergencies exacerbated by Russia's unprovoked and unjustified full-scale war in the Ukraine, including its attacks on Ukraine's cities and civilian infrastructure. As these challenges compound a growing trend of rapid urbanization, we need to redouble our efforts to achieve the SDGs. Cities and urban settlements where most people live depend on us. Ensuring urbanization happens sustainably is an urgent priority for the United States. Like our counterparts in other countries, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development serves the most vulnerable of our communities to decrease barriers to upward mobility, create decent homes, promote equitable development, and achieve sustainable communities. The United States also supports communities around the world in the recovery from disaster and conflict. We are committed to building local, regional, and global partnerships that will advance sustainability and resilience and to ensure well-managed cities become powerful engines of economic opportunity and innovation. The United States has a host of programs worldwide to promote transformative change in cities that advances SDG 11. Fulfilling the 2030 Agenda's promise to leave no one behind requires our commitment to foundational principles that support sustainable development: inclusion, transparency, the rule of law, human rights, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, the empowerment of women and girls, climate action and environmental sustainability, and harnessing the power of science, technology, and innovation at home and abroad. In this regard, the robust involvement of stakeholders in UN Habitat's meetings and activities is vital. We also recognize that UN Habitat is running a core budget surplus for the first time in over a decade. This is the direct result of the resolution to establish this assembly in the executive board in 2019. We call on all member states to contribute to UN Habitat, including to the core budget, and thereby enable UN Habitat to realize its full potential. This is especially important given the number of important resolutions the Assembly is poised to adopt. Finally, UN Habitat's commitment to strengthen accountability, including to prevent sexual exploitation, abuse, and sexual harassment, is fundamental.
I thank the distinguished representative, Mr. Solomon Green, Deputy Assistant Secretary from the United States of America. I call on the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Mr. Yoshinobu Fukusawa, Head of Delegation from Japan.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Madam Executive Director, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with congratulating all of us for the successful organization of the second session of the United Nations Habitat Assembly after the COVID-19 pandemic. The world is facing multiple crises, such as climate change and increasing natural disasters, which make the role of UN Habitat even more important. Japan has been actively supporting UN Habitat since its very beginning. Currently, particularly with UN Habitat Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, ROAP, located in the city of Fukuoka in Japan, we are supporting various projects. In the field of spatial planning, Japan is promoting Spatial Planning Platform, SPP, jointly with ROAP, facilitating stakeholders to share and discuss their experiences and knowledge. In February this year, at the 5th session of SPP meeting held in the city of Kathmandu in Nepal, participants from 14 countries lively discussed the issue in conjunction with climate change adaptation in particular. Japan is also formulating its new national spatial plan in this summer. Drawing upon our latest learnings, we will continue to contribute to sustainable development worldwide. In 2017, Japan established African Clean Cities Platform, ACCP, in collaboration with the African countries and international organizations, including UN Habitat, to promote and disseminate environmentally sound waste management systems. Japan aims to contribute to the realization of carbon neutral and circular economies in Africa. In July this year, Japan is hosting G7 Sustainable Urban Development Ministers meeting in the city of Takamatsu in Japan under the theme of Achieving Sustainable Urban Development Together. We are greatly honored to welcome Madam Maimouna Mohamed Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat in Takamatsu City, who will also be attending this meeting. It is many, many thanks to UN Habitat ROAP that Japan has been able to work so closely with UN Habitat for a long time in a number of areas. In order to maintain and further this close collaboration, we very much look forward to a smooth recruitment process for UN Habitat Regional Representative of Asia and the Pacific. Japan takes this opportunity to reconfirm its commitment to support and work closely with UN Habitat. I thank you all for your kind attention.
I thank the distinguished representative, Mr. Yoshinobu Fukusawa, head of the delegation from Japan. I now call on the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, His Honorable Mrs. Maria Theophili, head of delegation from Greece.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, dear colleagues, at the outset, I wish to congratulate all for organizing this timely and important event. In our independent world, effective multilateralism and international cooperation are essential in order to address the global challenges we face, including those related to poverty, inequality, climate, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. Being strongly committed to the implementation of 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, especially SDG 11, as well as the Paris Agreement and EU Green Deal, Greece has promoted a series of action programs and funding for the completion and modernization of the country's spatial planning framework, the completion of urban planning for at least 700 municipal units, urban regeneration through an integrated urban renewal program with a bioclimatic approach for 79 municipalities in the country. In addition, moreover, the Ministry of Environment and Energy supported Greek cities to participate to the project 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, while at the same time created a green cities network to speed up cities' transition to climate neutrality. In addition, our national framework is being enriched both at the level of national strategies and at the level of legislation on broader urban policy issues. This concerted effort is expected to bring enormous benefits for the sustainable development of the country and urban areas, as well as for the well-being of citizens. More specifically, it will stimulate investment, increase the value of real estate, strengthen commercial and tourism activity, and improve accessibility and daily life for citizens and visitors. Many urban centers are located among coasts. Coastal cities are strongly connected to the ocean and seas since they are on the front line of climate and environmental impacts and play a vital role in blue economy. The 9th Our Ocean Conference that will be held in Greece in 2024 would be an excellent opportunity for coastal cities, along with many other stakeholders, to contribute substantially to the global efforts to address the threats to our ocean and seas and to promote positive action towards the sustainability of the oceans. Greece renews its commitment to work together with UN Habitat. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative, Her Excellency Mrs. Maria Theophili, Head of Delegation from Greece. Now I call on the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Her Excellency Mr. Anouad Saquid, Head of Delegation of and Permanent Representative from France.
Madame la Directrice.
Madam Executive Director, ladies and gentlemen ministers, distinguished delegates, I take the floor on behalf of France in the name of his ambassador, permanent representative of France to UN Habitat. 2023 is an important year. I would even venture to say a crucial year for action to promote sustainable urban development. This is a responsibility that both honors us but also obligates us. Unfortunately, the progress that we have made towards sustainable cities remains insufficient. Today, the challenges facing our cities are numerous and considerable. To meet these challenges, we need to be bold. Mindful of this, France is and will remain committed to UN Habitat. I would like to here pay tribute to the courageous commitment of the Executive Director, who has successfully reformed the program over these past 6 years. For France, the sustainable development of cities and regions is a priority in our international action. Through our official development assistance, we have committed 3 billion euros for sustainable cities since 2019, including 1 billion euros to African cities. To shape the sustainable cities of tomorrow, there are two emerging and traditional issues that call for resolute action on our part within the framework of UN Habitat. The first is that of new digital technologies. Digital technology is increasingly being used as a tool for considering and designing urban transformations, and it is a factor in accelerating the achievement of the MDGs. Nonetheless, the lack of international guidance on the use of digital technology in this field is holding back its development. The development of international guidelines under the aegis of UN Habitat would help to fill this gap. I hope that the Assembly will adopt the resolution on people-centered smart cities, which was sponsored by France. The second issue is that of housing, which is part of UN Habitat's historic mandate. There can be no sustainable urbanization without appropriate housing policies. UN Habitat possesses undeniable know-how and can contribute added value, and this should be preserved and developed. This issue must lie at the very heart of its priorities, and this is why France backs the resolution proposed by Kenya on decent housing. Our priority, finally, is that of decarbonization and resilience of buildings. To this end, France supports the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, Global ABC, of which UN Habitat is a partner. We would like to urge all the governments present here today to join this movement in the run-up to the first global ministerial meeting on buildings and climate scheduled to take place in Paris in 2024.
I thank the distinguished representative, Her Excellency Mr. Arnold Souaquet, Head of Delegations and Permanent Representative from France. I call the next speaker on the list, the distinguished representative, Mr. Jabor Al-Dazori, Ambassador of the State of Qatar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful, the Executive Director, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, first, may I hail the pivotal role of the Human Settlements UN Programme and its strategic plans and important and significant projects at the different levels, the local, national, regional and national levels to develop the different urban areas, particularly slum areas and the communities